Most people never fail because they lack talent. They fail because their mind is constantly being pulled in 1,000 different directions. Opinions, criticism, comparison, endless distractions. The world is loud, and the louder it becomes, the harder it is to hear your own direction. But there is one mental discipline that separates the people who drift through life from the people who build extraordinary results. They train their mind to ignore the noise. They stop reacting to every voice, every opinion, every distraction. And when they do, something powerful happens. Clarity appears, focus sharpens, energy returns. Because the truth is simple. The world will never become quiet. So you must become stronger than the noise. There is a quiet truth about the human mind that most people never fully grasp. Your attention is not neutral. It is not passive. It is not simply drifting wherever the world pulls it. Your attention is the steering wheel of your life. Where it turns, your energy follows. Where your energy flows, your results begin to form. And where your results accumulate, a destiny slowly takes shape. Yet most people live as if their attention belongs to everyone except themselves. They wake up and immediately surrender it. A notification pulls them. A comment provokes them. A headline disturbs them. Someone else's success distracts them. Someone else's opinion discourages them. And before they realize it, hours have passed. Mental energy drained. Clarity scattered. Direction blurred. Nothing significant built. The tragedy is not that people lack intelligence. The tragedy is that they never trained their attention. Because attention, like strength, is not something you are simply born with. It is something you build. And like every form of strength in this world, it grows under resistance. A muscle becomes stronger when it is forced to lift weight. A mind becomes stronger when it learns to hold focus while the world pulls it away. That is the discipline of selective attention. It is the quiet power of deciding what deserves your mind and what does not. Most people do the opposite. They give their attention to whatever is loudest. But noise is not importance. Noise is simply volume. And the modern world is overflowing with volume. But if you want clarity, real clarity, you must begin to practice a rare skill. You must begin choosing where your attention lives. Because attention is not a casual resource. Attention is capital. And every time you invest it in something meaningless, you withdraw it from something meaningful. Every moment spent reacting to noise is a moment stolen from building your life. This is why extraordinary individuals operate differently. They are not necessarily more talented. They are not necessarily smarter. But they guard their attention like a fortress guards its gates. They do not allow every opinion to enter. They do not allow every distraction to pull them away. They do not allow every emotional trigger to hijack their thinking. They decide. And once that decision is made, their attention becomes deliberate. That is selective attention. And the moment you begin practicing it, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your mind stops scattering. Your thoughts stop drifting. Your energy stops leaking. Instead, everything begins aligning toward a single direction. But this transformation does not happen automatically. Selective attention is built through discipline, and discipline is not an abstract idea. It is built through daily behaviors, small choices, repeated decisions, tiny acts of mental resistance that slowly reshape how your mind operates. The first discipline is awareness. Before you can control your attention, you must observe where it goes. Most people never do this. They assume their thoughts simply appear on their own. But thoughts are not random. They are responses to what you consume. If you constantly expose your mind to chaos, your thinking becomes chaotic. If you constantly expose your mind to negativity, your thinking becomes defensive. If you constantly expose your mind to comparison, your thinking becomes insecure. Your mental diet shapes your internal dialogue, and your internal dialogue shapes your actions. So the first step in training selective attention is simple but powerful. Pay attention to what you are paying attention to. Watch how easily your mind jumps toward distraction. Observe how quickly your thoughts react to opinions, criticism, and irrelevant information. Do not judge it, just notice it. Because awareness is the beginning of mastery. Once you begin noticing the patterns of your attention, you gain the ability to interrupt them, and interruption creates space, space to redirect, space to choose. And that brings us to the second discipline, intentional thinking. Most people think reactively. Their thoughts are responses to external stimuli. Someone posts something online, they react. Someone criticizes them, they react. Someone achieves success, they react. Their thinking becomes a mirror of the environment. But intentional thinkers reverse the process. They decide what they will think about before the world decides for them. They begin their day with direction. They ask powerful questions. What matters today? What deserves my focus today? What action moves my life forward today? These questions are not motivational exercises. They are tools that direct attention, because when the mind receives a clear question, it begins searching for meaningful answers, and suddenly your thinking becomes purposeful instead of reactive. This is why journaling becomes such a powerful practice, not because writing is magical, but because writing slows thinking down. When you write your thoughts, you organize them. When you organize them, you see them clearly, and clarity changes behavior. 5 minutes of intentional journaling each morning can redirect the entire trajectory of your day. You remind yourself what actually matters. You anchor your attention to purpose, and the noise of the world loses its grip. But selective attention is not only about thinking, it is also about consumption. What you feed your mind becomes the raw material of your thoughts. If you constantly feed it shallow information, your thinking becomes shallow. If you constantly feed it distraction, your thinking becomes fragmented. But when you feed your mind depth, books, ideas, meaningful reflection, your thinking becomes structured. This is why reading remains one of the most powerful tools for mental discipline. Reading forces attention. You cannot scroll through a book the way you scroll through endless feeds. A book demands presence, and that presence strengthens concentration. Even 30 minutes of focused reading a day begins rewiring how your mind handles information. Your attention span grows. Your patience grows. Your thinking deepens. But there is another practice even more powerful: focused work. The ability to sit with a task and remain fully engaged without distraction. This is becoming rare. Most people cannot sustain attention for long periods, not because they are incapable, but because their attention has been conditioned for constant switching. Message, notification, video, conversation, another notification, another video, another interruption. The mind becomes addicted to novelty, and novelty destroys depth. But depth is where transformation happens. So if you want to train selective attention, you must practice sustained focus. Choose one task, commit to it, turn off distractions, silence the environment, and give that task your full mental presence. At first, the mind will resist. It will crave stimulation. It will look for excuses to check something else. That is normal, because your mind is adjusting. But each time you resist that urge, something subtle happens. You reclaim authority over your attention. And the more often you do this, the stronger that authority becomes. Attention becomes steadier, focus becomes natural, and productivity multiplies. This is the quiet advantage of people who master their attention. They accomplish more not because they work longer, but because when they work, they are fully present. But selective attention is not only about productivity. It is also about emotional discipline, because many distractions are not informational, they are emotional. A comment triggers irritation. A comparison triggers insecurity. A criticism triggers defensiveness. And suddenly your mind becomes consumed by something that adds no value to your life. Hours of mental energy disappear, not because the issue was important, but because attention became trapped inside emotion. Selective attention interrupts this pattern. When you train your mind to observe emotional triggers without immediately reacting, you regain control. You notice the reaction, but you do not feed it. You acknowledge the thought, but you redirect your attention, because not every thought deserves your energy, and not every emotion deserves your time. This is emotional maturity, the ability to decide what deserves your attention and what deserves to be ignored. But perhaps the most powerful practice of selective attention is silence, true silence. Moments where your mind is not constantly stimulated. No screens, no conversations, no external input, just space. Because when noise disappears, your deeper thoughts begin to surface. Your real priorities begin to reveal themselves. Your intuition becomes clearer. Silence allows the mind to reorganize, and the longer you sit with that silence, the stronger your internal direction becomes. Many people fear silence because silence forces confrontation with your own thinking. But growth lives inside that confrontation, because in silence, the mind stops reacting and begins creating. You begin asking bigger questions. What kind of life am I building? What deserves my time? What distractions have I been feeding that are quietly draining my future? These questions reshape priorities, and priorities reshape behavior. So selective attention is not merely a productivity tool, it is a life philosophy. It is the discipline of refusing to waste your mental energy on things that do not move your life forward. It is the practice of directing your mind with purpose, day after day, decision after decision, because the truth is simple. Your attention will either be controlled by the world or directed by you. There is no middle ground. If you do not decide where your focus belongs, the world will decide for you, and the world does not care about your purpose. It cares about capturing your attention. So you must become the guardian of your own mind. Protect it, train it, strengthen it, redirect it, because the life you build tomorrow depends entirely on where your attention lives today. A scattered mind creates scattered results. A focused mind creates powerful momentum, and momentum, once established, begins changing everything. You think clearer, you act faster, you build stronger habits, you move toward your goals with conviction instead of hesitation, all because your attention stopped leaking into noise. You trained it, just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance. Your attention grows stronger through discipline, day by day, decision by decision, moment by moment. This is how mental mastery begins. You are no longer a passenger in your own mind. You become the driver. And when your mind becomes disciplined, the world loses its ability to pull you in every direction. You move forward, with clarity, with purpose, with unstoppable focus. You have begun training your attention. You mastered the power of focus.